The Laci Peterson Scott Peterson case. I've gone back and forth on this one ever since I first learned of it. Some cases are just so clear, while a case like this has me flip-flopping from Scott's innocent to Scott's guilty to Scott's innocent to Scott's guilty, back and forth, back and forth. This is a case that caught the world's attention. It got so much press, you would have thought Laci and Scott were celebrities. I was really young when this happened, but this was the first time that I had ever really cared to pay any attention to the news. I didn't care about the weather. I got shit to do whether it rains or not. This case might actually be what started my fascination with true crime. I didn't follow it that closely, but I followed it as closely as a kid could. Because this was like the first news thing to ever capture my kid mind. Even back then, I couldn't figure out if Scott really did it or not. Everyone was so focused on Amber that they convicted him of murder in the public eye long before he was convicted in court. Him cheating never really mattered to me. I mean, it happens. You know it. I know it. We all know it. So you think he's innocent, do you? Well, how about him telling Amber that his wife was dead before she was dead? Now that's a head scratcher. What an oddly specific thing to say. Okay, maybe Scott's guilty. But you know what? Scott's a liar. He even lies about lies. Some people just lie. I knew a guy that lied about everything. I mean, everything. The stupidest things he'd lie about. If he said he went to Burger King, you best believe he ate at Wendy's. He did not go to Burger King. If he told you he went to sleep at 10, you know he was still up at midnight. Scott is just like him. A liar. But for all the lies Scott told, something's always stood out to me. Scott's silence. Where are the lies when his life was on the line? He never took the stand. He just sat there emotionless every day in court. But why would he not even try? He could have gotten on that stand and woven a perfect web of lies in a desperate attempt to save his ass, but he didn't. Now why is that? My personal guess is he was scared to take the stand. He didn't want to answer any questions. He may have even been advised not to take the stand by his attorneys. He knew he messed up by doing the TV interview, so he just shut up and kept quiet. Even if he did talk, I don't think it probably would have done him any good anyway, so he might as well have not even said anything. I don't think there was anything that Scott could have said in that courtroom that would have changed the outcome. Still, I can never truly say whether or not I think Scott is guilty or innocent. I think it's definitely possible he's innocent and also completely likely that he killed Laci. Where was the evidence? The news told everyone where Scott was the day of his wife's disappearance. Now, if someone else killed Laci, they knew exactly where to dump the body. Allegedly, examiners assumed the baby lived to January 3rd. There's the robbers that were in the area on the 24th, not the 26th, which seems to be suggested, as if anyone would attempt to rob a house when all the local news trucks are parked on the street. There's too much doubt for me to say Scott is guilty, but for every part that makes me think Scott is innocent, there seems to be another part that leaves me doubting his innocence. Scott's story is he left at 9:30 a.m. while Laci was watching Martha Stewart. He went fishing on the bay, got to the marina around 11. He got home at 4:30. According to Scott, Laci had went to take the dog for a walk and planned to go to the store to buy for Christmas morning breakfast and was planning to make gingerbread cookies that night. The problem I find with this case is that there's really no one else to point the finger at. And if there was, it was certainly missed, as the focus was on Scott immediately. Multiple people allegedly saw a pregnant woman walking her dog believed to be Laci. These stories apparently contradicted themselves and led to law enforcement dismissing the claims. There's the robbers, but beyond that, who else is there? The mailman said the Peterson dog always barked at him, but didn't bark that day Lacey went missing. Scott's behavior is another thing going against him. He seemed unfazed by the whole situation. But how are you to act in this situation? We've seen it with Heidi Broussard, where the significant other is instantly the prime suspect. Usually no matter what, but in that case, despite him being found guilty in the court of public opinion, when he turned out to be innocent, nobody even talked about the case anymore. Nobody said, "Whoa, man, we're sorry, we thought you did it." They just moved on to the next case, like we admittedly, at some point, all do. But with Scott, who was being recorded by Amber Fry, the guy was pretending to be out of town in Paris. Lying for what? To impress Amber? Like, what was the point of the whole Paris thing? Was it just a reason so he didn't have to see her? With all the shit that was going on at the time? Probably. Whatever the reason. When it was learned about Amber Fry, it was over for Scott. Now they had a motive to run with, but would he really kill his pregnant wife just to be with Amber? If he didn't want a kid of his own, then why would he cheat on his pregnant wife with a woman who had a child of her own? But I think it's safe to assume he wouldn't have stuck around with Amber for very long. Probably would have found another woman to cheat on her with, and to tell her big fancy lies to, about being in Aspen and how beautiful the weather is, when he's really in a hotel in San Diego with a broken TV. Scott cheating doesn't make him a murderer, but for many it did. I don't even think it's the fact that he cheated on his wife. It's everything piled up. Lacey went missing on Christmas Eve. She was 8 months pregnant. He went fishing on Christmas Eve of all days. His odd behavior. His secret boat. He was in the place the body showed up. Then you throw in Amber and her recorded calls with Scott. It's just too much. Then the doubt starts creeping in again. If Scott really killed Lacey and put her in the water, why would he tell the police the exact place he put the body as his alibi? Did he really think he'd get away with murder? I don't know. Another thing that's always bothered me about this case is that it happened on Christmas Eve. Would Scott really kill Lacey on Christmas Eve? Why not December 1st? But then again, when I consider things like his unnecessary lies, his behavior, his affair, it becomes kind of clear that Scott's mind may not work properly. Things just don't make sense. He didn't even seem to be bothered in trying to find Lacey. After the bodies were found, Scott was arrested. The trial began on June 1st, 2004. Mark Garagos defends Scott in court, making the claim that Lacey was abducted while walking her dog. On the 24th, neighbors across the street from the Peterson residence left for the holidays and were victims of a burglary. I do think it's a strong possibility that Lacey encountered the robbers, but that wasn't looked into as much as it probably should have been. There was a lot of evidence against Scott. There was a motive, means, opportunity, but no real forensics. And looking at his computer's use, they saw he was looking at the currents in the bay. It was also confirmed that the home's computer history showed that someone was looking at sunflower umbrellas and some other shopping site. So was this Lacey or Scott pretending to be Lacey? I'm really not sure Scott would have even thought to do something like that, honestly. In 2002, I don't think you're really thinking about making it look like your wife was home by Googling pictures of sunflowers. It just doesn't seem like that's something that would come across someone's mind in 2002. But perfectly plausible that he was the one behind the keyboard. See, that's what I'm saying. Flip-flop. Flip-flop, flip-flop. Never know. I'm not sure Scott would have even thought to do something like that, honestly. But the fact that the bodies were found where Scott said he was, along with him telling Amber that he lost his wife before she went missing, that's just too much of a coincidence for most. And once the Amber Fry tapes were brought out in court, it was over. But I still don't believe that the trial proved that Scott actually killed Lacey. The jury came to their verdict. Guilty of the crime of killing Lacey Peterson. Millions of people were all pleased with the verdict. However likely it is that Scott killed Lacey, I just don't feel like it was proven. And next up was whether or not Scott would get the death penalty. Was justice served? It certainly seems so. But I can never shake the doubt from my mind. People didn't care if there was proof that he did it. They just wanted him convicted for murder. But even with my doubt, it's clear he's a liar that lied about lies. And it's obvious his brain works a little differently. So I could definitely believe that he believed he was smart enough to get away with murder. Will we ever truly know if Scott was the man behind the murder? Probably not. Speculation will continue. So even if I doubt his guilt, there's just way too much that paints him as the killer. She wasn't at the park where she would have been walking the dog. There was no evidence of a struggle or forced entry into the house. No evidence of a robbery, a sexual attack, nothing. At the end of the day, whether Scott did it or not, Lacey was still murdered. A beautiful woman and her unborn son were taken from the world in a brutal, brutal manner. Someone had to pay the price for that. And with no other logical conclusions to come to, Scott got stuck with the bill. Well, hey, this your boy Lantic City. You probably thought the video was over, but even I thought the video was over, but it's not. Because of this video. From the archive, Scott Peterson talks about the disappearance of his wife, Lacey. So, I watched about 2 minutes of this. Quickly came to the conclusion that this needed to be presented in this video because it is a perfect display of Scott's odd behavior. His lack of emotion, just how he is, you really get a glimpse at Scott. So we're going to do this like I would do the Predator videos. Just watch his interview. And I'll make comments here and there. Things that I may have forgot to bring up in the scripted portion of the video. Or whatever. So let's dive into this footage.
First of all, describe what the past month has been for you.
It's been absolutely terrible, as it is for everyone. I mean, you see us in press conference. You haven't seen me as much in the media, but you see our families and the raw emotion that's out there and the grief, the frustration. You know, we go through a range of emotions from anger to frustration to grief. For me, it comes at different times during the day. 2 weeks ago, I knew exactly what to do. I'd go to the volunteer center at the Red Lion and open up the center and wait for the volunteers to come and work on things. And then I'd go out and put up flyers. I knew exactly what to do, and that was going to bring Lacey home. And now I don't know exactly what to do, and that's so frustrating. That's the hardest part. I mean, we have a core group of volunteers still working to get her picture out there nationally through corporations and organizations and obviously media and other means. So we continue to work tirelessly, many people do, to bring her home. And we can do that during the day, and unfortunately at night, don't know what to do, and the grief hits, and it's unbearable. But you also have to recognize that Lacey is hurting worse than any of us. She's the one that's not with our family. She's the one that we need to find and bring home.
I know you have
So
moments.
that gives you focus. It gives you, there are times when you just can't.
It's just a real lack of urgency that he displays here. It's like he is just so quiet and timid, and he's just really soft-spoken, and he thinks about
Continue, and you have to, you're driving.
every word, and you want to sound great, and I don't know, you're just kind of talking like this way, almost like a fake voice, like it's not the voice that he would naturally use. This is, I mean, I guess you would try to talk. I would hope you would try to talk a little more proper when you're giving a fucking interview with CBS 13 in 2003 with reporter Gloria Gomez. You'd probably want to get your vocabulary in order. But Scott being Scott, I don't know.
I mean, you have to pull over and stop, and if you're doing something, you just can't continue. Try to stay busy and have a task, to know what to do, a positive task, and try to focus on that.
I know that there are certain areas you can't go to. It's hard to go to the park.
It's hard to go to, it's important though, because in the mornings when down there alone.
There
Now
are
look at this shit.
certain areas you can't go to. It's hard to go to the park.
It's
I feel like he had more emotion, and he had more of an emotional reaction to that question than he did.
It's hard to go
the other question.
it's important though, because in the morning.
Because this is actually affecting him. This is shit that's really bothering him. He hated the media.
Mornings when down there alone, I feel closer to her. Maybe that's a attempt to communicate or something, but yeah, definitely.
Okay, now
Maybe that's a attempt to communicate or something, but
tip to communicate. Now
it's important
that's
to,
when I said, all right, let me do this here. Let me.
it's important though, because in the mornings when down there alone, I feel closer to her. Maybe that's a attempt to communicate or something, but
A tip to communicate. I don't know what he was trying to go with there, but if he did kill her, if he did kill her, would he would point the direction in the park, I guess, but he already told the police he was fishing, so I'm just not quite sure what Scott was trying to communicate there. A tip to communicate.
I feel closer to her.
Now, let me analyze his reaction to this question compared to the one that what I want to attempt to do here is figure out when Scott's lying and when he's not. Now, his reaction to the media question and him not being able to go about the park and be a man about the town or whatever, that was real. But let's see how he reacts to other questions.
It's, there are times when you just can't continue, and you're driving, you have to pull over and stop, and if you're doing something, you just can't continue. Try to stay busy and have a task, to know what to do, a positive task, and try to focus on that.
I know that there are certain areas you can't go to. It's hard to go to the park.
It's hard to go to, it's important though, because in the mornings when down there alone, I feel closer to her. Maybe that's a attempt to communicate or something, but yeah.
Now, it does seem like a little bit of emotion is being displayed here. I'll give him that. But it does seem that he is at the very least, trying to repress it. If there's any at all, and if he's just acting, he's not putting on a big display. Probably because he doesn't look like a guy who could pull off a convincing cry, honestly.
And you mentioned right off the start that you haven't.
But clearly, he is sad. You see these eyes. These are sad eyes. These are eyes that have been teary. But are they teary for Lacey, or are they teary because he knows he's probably going to be fucked? I don't know, man.
I haven't been in the media.
No. It was for the first 3 days or so when she disappeared. It was an absolute privacy issue.
So,
Not showing the grief of our family, not exploiting that. After that, it was a conscious decision to remain out of the media eye, decided upon by everyone in the family and the volunteers, in order to, and I'm sorry to say it to media, but to keep the media here, to keep them hungry for, an interview with me or a picture, so that they would keep coming back, so this story won't fall through the.
What an interesting thing to say.
Them hungry for, an interview with me or a picture, so that they would keep coming back, so this story won't fall through the cracks, as it has happened with other missing people, with other abductions. And it's up to the family to keep that going. So we made that conscious decision together that I wouldn't speak. Obviously, we did lots of media with the rest of the family together. That I wouldn't speak. Obviously, abductions. And it's up to the family to keep.
Those eyes right there. I mean, those are serious eyes. They went from teary eyes, it's up to the families. So he actually does seem serious.
Keep that going. So we made that conscious decision together that I wouldn't speak. Obviously, we did lots of media with the rest of the family. And to keep him here, I didn't. But unfortunately now, the suspicions of me have grown so great due to people, wondering what happened to the inappropriate relationship that I had with Amber Fry, that it's necessary to speak. It's appropriate time to, in order to ask people to keep looking for Lacey, because they're not looking for Lacey as much as they should be right now.
Let's talk about some of those suspicions, because there are a lot of suspicions out there. I think people want to know, first of all, why would you leave Lacey, who was 8.5 months pregnant, alone to go fishing on Christmas Eve?
Okay.
Why?
Our day was planned for Christmas Eve dinner at her mom's house, our mom's house. Preparations were all made, gifts done. Lacey was simply going to be baking that day, and it's not uncommon for us to simply we have separate pursuits. She does not play golf as I do, which was my other option for that day. And being 7.5 months pregnant, she's not going to want to go out in a boat. But it's simply a leisure activity to pursue that day. And it was.
That is a convincing. It's not a convincing excuse for why he went fishing, but it's a convincing excuse for why Lacey didn't go with him.
What our plans were. It may not be everyone's choice to do things like that, but it's the way that our relationship works.
I know when I approached you on Amber Fry, and I told you that I would be reporting that you had a girlfriend,
Right.
Your response to me is that you had no comment either way. Why didn't you just come clean then?
Well, I'm glad you asked the question. It simply, wasn't appropriate to comment on it. And unfortunately, there has been a statement in the press that I denied it, which was made with another reporter when I characterized a National Enquirer article as a pack of lies. And I did so without reading the article, unfortunately. The article I thought to include, I know also included a supposed life insurance policy, supposed blood evidence, and I forget what else, but also included the report of Amber. So I called it a pack of lies, not knowing that she was in there. So it's just not important to comment about that. And I'm glad that Amber came forward. You want me to turn that
He's glad.
off?
Yeah, what is that?
That's
I'm sure.
my phone, unfortunately. I thought it was
Okay, so I fibbed, I guess.
off. And
This
I'll
is
answer
actually where I stopped watching
question
the video.
again.
Like, this is when I said, all right,
that somewhere here.
hold on. Somewhere. Where's your
Somewhere
phone,
here.
buddy? Like,
It sounds like a phone.
Yeah, it's kind of going crazy, isn't it? Ah,
he's found his phone.
okay. Yeah, so if you just want to ask your question again, I'll just...
Okay, so, once again, if you can just talk about why didn't you just come forward at the time when I asked you if you had a girlfriend? Why didn't you just come clean then?
Right. At that time, it wasn't appropriate to comment about because it's not relevant. I'm glad you asked it because there were reports that I denied it. When I characterized a
Okay,
National
hold on.
Enquirer article relevant. I'm glad you asked it.
You had a girlfriend. Why didn't you just come clean then?
Right.
Okay, let's compare these answers. The first answer he gave before the phone went off, and then this one.
At that time, it wasn't appropriate to comment about because it's not relevant. I'm glad you asked it because there were reports that I denied it. When I characterized a National Enquirer article as a pack of lies that included, unknowing to me, I knew that the article included this supposed life insurance policy bought this summer, supposed blood evidence, and other strange reports like taking the floors out of our home. Comment about the report of Amber's policy made with another reporter when it simply wasn't appropriate to comment on it. And unfortunately, there has been a statement in the press that I denied it, which was made with another reporter when I characterized a National Enquirer article as a pack of lies. And I did so without reading the article, unfortunately. The article I thought to include, I know also included a supposed life insurance policy, supposed blood evidence, and I forget what else, but also included the report of Amber.
So damn near exactly the same.
Called it a pack of lies, not knowing that she was in there. So it's just not important to comment about that included supposed blood. Approach that issue. Supposedly, I didn't know, this relationship that I had, and I didn't know it included, this relationship that I had. So I characterized that as a pack of lies, and that's come out as a denial, it was never intended to be. I simply approached that issue as it's not relevant. And there's no reason to comment about it. There's a reason to comment about the number. Now, I'm glad that Amber did the press conference. I'm glad that she came forward because it allows lots of people, I believe, to start looking for Lacey again because it's slacked off because of that, because there's suspicion about me.
She claims you deceived her. She claims
Amber?
that, yeah.
Yes, she
claims
did
that
not
you-
know. She did not know that I was married. That is correct. So I'm glad she came forward. I informed her that I am married, and of Lacey's disappearance shortly after, Christmas Eve. It was a couple of days after Christmas Eve. I don't know the exact date. I'm glad she did the press conference. I'm glad that's out there. It had nothing to do with Lacey's disappearance.
Your stomach must have been turning, though, when you see her go on television, and it's national. And here's this girl
I mean, no reaction at all.
saying, he lied to me. He told me he was single.
Sure.
I mean, your stomach must have been turning.
You know what? It was a positive to allow us to go on to search for Lacey. That's how I view it, and that's how I felt about it.
The Rocha family
I said, good,
says,
this will be done, and we can keep looking for Lacey.
Now, you know Lacey's family.
Now, one thing is he is really pushing the "we gotta find Lacey" issue. Like, over and over again.
Family says they can no longer trust you.
That was
your thoughts on that?
unfair and inappropriate for me to have that relationship.
How do you feel,
And-
though, that, you know, the Rocha family says they can't
They're,
trust you?
they're wonderful people, the Rocha family. I know that, you know, we all have love between us. And I know that we'll all keep searching for Lacey. And, you know, I told Lacey about the relationship. She knew about it, and it's important between us. And we'll
I don't think he did. I don't think Lacey would have went for that at all. See, that's another thing. If there's a motive here, what really is it? Is it a man that just doesn't want a kid? Did they get into a fight? Did he just kill her in a fit of rage? Did she find out about the affair? Did that actually lead to her murder? I don't know. Doubt. Too much doubt. I just don't know. People want to act like it's so 100% this case. I don't know. I've never been able to say 100% that Scott Peterson is responsible for the death of Lacey Peterson and his unborn son. I see where you're coming from, and I think it's definitely possible that he did it, but I just don't think it was proven that he did it. I just don't feel it was ever, there's no piece of evidence I feel that was presented that made me go, yeah, he did it. Definitely. He definitely did it. There's been things that I'm like, yeah, that's okay, maybe. Now yeah, alright. But for everything that there is that makes me think he's guilty, there's something else that makes me think he's innocent. So I really just end up back and forth, back and forth. Is the wrong man being held responsible for the death of Lacey Peterson, or has justice been rightly served? A lot of people think so. I just don't know. For me, it looks bad. He probably did it. But I don't feel it was proof. I mean, the fact that the bodies show up exactly where he tells the cops he was, he could not have been that confident in his anchors that he supposedly made to keep the bodies down forever. Or did he assume? I mean, he couldn't have assumed that they would have floated away. They were anchored down, right? And if he tells them that he's at the same place that the bodies show up, why would he tell the cops that was where he was? Now you could say, yeah, but he pointed the direction into the park. Sure. But he would have to think that the water would be searched too. Instantly the prime suspect. I mean, I just don't know.
We'll continue to search for her. We'll bring her home.
That's
all
another
I know
problem
to
people
say.
had a big issue with. A lot of Lacey's family talked to me and friends saying, if Lacey knew that you were having an affair, she would have said something to someone. She wouldn't have kept quiet about it.
I don't know if she mentioned it to anyone or not.
I don't know Lacey. I didn't get the opportunity to meet Lacey. I'm sure she was a wonderful person. And I'm sure that she was not the person that was going for that. She would have been big mad, as they would say. She would have been big mad. Lacey wasn't going for that. And I really don't think the keeping it quiet for Christmas, keeping it quiet for the holidays thing was a thing, but then again, maybe it was. And of all days, he kills her on Christmas Eve. We know that he was talking to Amber since November, mid-November. He tells her that his wife is that his wife, he lost his wife on December 14th. And 10 days later, he actually loses his wife. It's just too much stuff that points to him being guilty. Too much stuff that points to him being guilty, but still so much doubt that lingers. I just don't know about this case. I'm just never sure if the right guy, the right person, is in jail for the murder of Lacey Peterson.
I did see a report in the news, an interview with a friend of ours, Lori, that indicated that she did not believe that I had told Lacey. Lori also said, I know Scott, and he had nothing to do with her disappearance.
Now watch the eyes. He really throws those eyes out, and seemingly random. I mean, he's not really doing it a lot.
Did not believe that I had told Lacey. Lori also said, I know Scott.
I don't think he told Lacey, though. For real? That, to me, would have to be the most likely scenario for the motive, is that Lacey found out about Amber, and that's why he killed her on Christmas Eve. That's the only conclusion that I can come to. As far as motive, I don't buy the whole he didn't want a kid, he didn't want to be married. He probably didn't want to be married. Obviously, he was cheating, but I don't buy that was the reason that he supposedly killed Lacey. But let's proceed.
And he had nothing to do with her disappearance. And that statement to me is what's relevant. Because you can, okay, question my morals and my poor decision making. That's fine. But don't stop looking for Lacey. She's out there somewhere. She shouldn't be. She should be with our family.
You mentioned...
So let's keep working to bring her home.
I know that you mentioned during the network interview that only you and Lacey know your marriage.
That's correct.
Explain that.
Just as anyone's intimate relationships, it's it's between those two people. And yes, you share things with people, and some things you don't share with people.
Now, did Lacey find out about the affair, or did you just come out and tell her?
No, I informed her about it. I don't believe she knew.
Why come out? I mean, what made you say, I'm going to tell her today? What made that day the day to tell her?
He certainly looks
just because it's the right thing.
A little more stressed answering this question.
Thing to do, and as you know, when you're not doing the right thing, it just eats you up. You feel sick to your stomach, and you can't function, and you have a hard time looking at someone.
Right. You mentioned it was the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
But from my understanding is that after you told Lacey, you continued to see Amber. Was that also the right thing to do?
I saw her, yeah. No, it was not.
Explain that.
That is the explanation. It was not the right thing to do.
But you continue to do it.
Right, and it was not the right thing to do.
At 1% List, we provide a full-service realtor experience for our clients for only 1%. We have saved our clients
Really?
millions of dollars in
Whoa.
commission.
I'm going to savingsellers.com right now.
And then, even after Lacey went missing, you continued to romance this girl?
No.
She claims that you called her on the 24th and told her...
I informed Amber about Lacey's disappearance and the fact that I was married.
On the 24th? December
No,
24th.
no, not on the 24th. I believe it was probably it was a few days after.
She says that you called her on the 24th, December 24th, and told her you were with your parents in Maine.
Man,
Is that
Okay.
true?
I thought it was Petty.
No, I called her and informed her about Lacey's disappearance.
On the 24th of December.
No, I did not. It was a few days after that I called her and told her I was married.
Okay. But
No.
she claims, let me just finish. She just claims that you called her on the 24th, told her that you were going to Maine, you were visiting your family in Maine, and then you were going to Brussels.
Gloria, I'm not going to waste what little media time we have, and in this forum, with, this is a short newscast, and I don't know how much of these words you're going to use or not, but I'm not going to waste that by defending myself or talking about irrelevant things. It's better served if we talk about what happened and where's Lacey.
Okay.
So the facts are that we know that on Christmas Eve, I left the house here around 9:30. She was here in the home. Okay, that's a fact that has to get out there because it's been reported erroneously that I saw her leave the house. Okay, she was in the house. That's one thing we know. Second thing we know is that the dog was returned to our yard with its leash on at 10:30 by a neighbor. Those are two things we know about her disappearance. And hopefully those can help some people. There are things that we need to get out there are the tip lines, which is the Modesto Police tip line, 209-342-6166, and also 1-866-LACI info, LACI info. And that's a tip line for people who have talked to the police. Even if they talk to them, please call that tip.
Man's even remembered the number. I mean, I would think if you killed your wife, you wouldn't care enough to remember the number to the tip line. But that's just me. I don't know, man. I don't know.
Tip line if you saw her that day, if you've seen her since, or if there's something.
Well, you know what? I guess it makes sense. He's trying to get out of being the prime suspect. So, yeah. Okay, now I know. Now I know.
You think is important in the neighborhood. We want to be very specific.
Okay.
The other big push that we need is LaceyPeterson.com. People can go there and print off the flyers and distribute those into every medical center, bus stop, high traffic area in the nation, because it could be the next flyer that brings her home to our family.
And I know more than I know that you want to find Lacey, and the second thing you want to do is clear yourself from suspicion, correct? I mean, that is, you want the focus back on Lacey and not on you.
I want people looking for Lacey, because they're not doing that right now.
So she has come to the same conclusion that I have. Around about the same time.
That brings her home to our family.
And I know more than I know that you want to find Lacey, and the second thing you want to do is clear yourself from suspicion, correct? I mean, that is, you want the focus back on Lacey and not on you.
I want people looking for Lacey, because they're not doing that right now. And that's why I'm sitting down with you, in hopes that people will go, you know what? If I think he had some involvement, if I don't think he had some involvement, that doesn't matter, because Lacey is what matters, and she's out there missing, and she needs to be home with her families. So I don't care to defend myself. I don't care what people think of me.
See, his actions are not... His demeanor is not right, but the words are correct. He's using the right words, he's talking the talk, but he's not walking the walk.
You know, as I've said, question my moral character if you want to, but look at your heart, think of Lacey, her picture, baby, and make the effort to bring her home.
No,
And that's
pick that
a
payment.
simple reality. That's a simple thing we need to do. Just, think whatever you want of me. As long as you're out there and you're comfortable with yourself, that you're doing what you need to be doing to find Lacey and bring her home.
I know that law enforcement officials have told me that you won't take a lie detector test, that you've wavered back and forth on that. Why?
Well, let me say this about the investigation. I gave you 2 times earlier, 9:30 and 10:30 when the dog was returned here. Investigators on both sides, law enforcement and private, have asked me not to comment any more about times, about conversations I had with the police, about the possible polygraph, tests if I've taken or if I've not, and other, things surrounding the investigation so that it can be clear. So I'm simply not going to comment
On why you're
about
not going
those
to take
things.
it?
I'm not going to comment if I have or have not taken a polygraph with the police.
The life insurance policy, why take one out on Lacey? $250,000?
We have life insurance policies in place that were established when we bought this home that you're in right now 2 years ago. There was no life insurance policy taken out recently, as has been reported in the National Enquirer, the dubious source of alien information as well.
I know that a neighbor saw you removing things on the 24th. You mentioned this morning that it was umbrellas.
Yeah, we have some large umbrellas for the backyard pool area. Market umbrellas, I think is the term for them.
Why would you store those in the winter?
It started to rain, so I was going to store them. Just like you asked, why would I store them? I was taking them from the pool to store.
Officials of mine have told me, sources have mentioned to me, that there were cement bags that were in the storage area, and apparently a few of them were empty.
Sure.
Explain that.
Well, I could take you out in the backyard and show you all the cement work and brickwork that we've done in the backyard and show.
Have told me, sources have mentioned to me, that there were cement bags that were in the storage area, and apparently a few of them were empty.
Sure.
Explain that.
Well, I could take you out in the backyard and show you all the cement work and brickwork that we've done to this home, and you'd find, cement.
What some would call duping delight. I think this was one assertion that he was overly confident in, because he could actually prove that there was work recently done on the driveway or wherever it was done, but allegedly the cement didn't match. They matched with the anchor that was found in his boat, and there was believed to be that Scott made 5 anchors. 4 of them were used to tie down Lacey, and only one of them she broke free from 3 of them, I believe it was. So there is a thing with the cement, but I think that the little smirk he just gave is because he can take that woman out back and show her right now. That's he can't prove anything, but he can prove that he did recently do some cement work, and he can take her out back and show her, or out front, or wherever that is.
Sure.
Explain that.
Well, I could take you out in the backyard and show you all the cement work and brickwork that we've done to this home, and you'd find, cement bags around here.
So this was something that, it was home remodeling, or what were you doing with the cement?
Yeah. And again, we're starting to go into areas that investigators have asked me not to comment about, so we should probably, simply put the brakes on at that point.
Okay.
Put
I
the
don't want
brakes
to
on
comment
it.
about the life insurance policy.
Gloria.
But I don't want to give specific times or other information that could jeopardize what they find is valuable information in finding Lacey.
Okay. I know that you mentioned on Good Morning America that it wouldn't surprise you if they found blood
Sure.
in your vehicles. Explain why.
Well, take a look at my hand. You can see, cuts here on my knuckles, numerous scars. I work on farms. I work with machinery. I know I cut my knuckle that day.
On what day?
On Christmas Eve.
Doing what?
Reaching in the toolbox of my truck and then into the pocket on the door. I cut open my knuckle and there's a blood stain on the door, on the driver's side door.
sources of mine have mentioned that you also, when you came home on the 24th, did some laundry. You washed your clothes. Do you understand why that may look a little suspicious to the average person? Why would he come home and do his laundry?
Well, the average guy that goes out in the ocean fishing gets some salt water on him and comes home wet.
But in the winter,
In between breath.
And
You're
so
gonna
What are you
get
going
wet
to do
in
with your
December?
wet saltwater clothes?
you're gonna get wet in December on the boat on a day that he said himself was cold. I don't know. See, that's what points you back to Scott did it. He killed her.
yeah. So you just
Anyways,
decided,
but now again, I probably shouldn't even mention that because of what they've asked me not to. So we should, we'll have to
I
stop
wanted
with
to
that line of
mention
questioning.
one other thing to you, and that was, I talked to Mr. Rocha yesterday, Dennis Rocha.
Oh, great, good.
And he didn't have too many
Look at
positive.
that. It's like, oh, great, good. And then he's like, that guy.
He didn't have too many positive things to
Question.
One other thing to you, and that was, I talked to Mr. Rocha yesterday, Dennis Rocha.
Oh, great, good.
And
Like he's fighting against rolling his eyes.
he didn't have too many positive things to say.
Correct.
One of the things he said, and I'm quoting here, as far as you're concerned, it's lie after lie with Scott. Does the guy ever tell the truth? Your
That's
reaction.
unfortunate that that's his thought of me.
Do you understand why he feels that way, though? As far as the girlfriend is concerned, and
Well, certainly, it was an inappropriate thing. And I never lied to Dennis. I have never lied to Dennis. I think I saw him last, Lacey's disappearance, and prior to that, it was a year before that Lacey and I never saw him. That's her father, Dennis.
right. And I have to ask you,
Sure.
are you in any way connected to Lacey's disappearance?
I had nothing to do with Lacey's disappearance.
What
And
would you-
again, even if people out there question that, if they would just look at their hearts and make the effort to bring her home to her family, I don't care what you think of me.
Because someone out
But
there
know, someone out there knows. And you can be the key to finding them by putting out that, next
You're
flyer.
looking at the camera.
Well, it's a plea to the audience.
ahead.
That's why we're doing this.
Go ahead. I mean, if you want to make a statement to anybody who out
Well,
there.
that is, look in your hearts and know that you've done what you can to bring Lacey home. And if you haven't, please do it. And that's going to LaceyPeterson.com and printing out that flyer and putting it in every medical building, on your car, in bus stations, or use the tip lines if you have any information. That's what's going to bring her home. And think what you want of me, but in your hearts you should be helping Lacey.
I know that.
That's really all I think I have to say.
Okay, I just want to ask
Thanks,
you
Gloria.
one last thing, if that's okay, about Lacey, because I know that you get really choked up when you talk about it. Tell me what
Yeah.
you love about Lacey.
God, I think you can sum it up pretty easily with looking at her photograph. The photograph, her big smile in the press.
Because you guys met in college, or
Yeah.
and tell me what connected you two right away. I know she's got a beautiful smile, but what linked you guys?
I don't know, just being able to complete each other. I think that's it. But, you asked how, and all you have to do is look at that picture, and you know that she's a bright one, a bright light in a lot of people's lives. So
You think she's still alive?
she is,
You're sure that?
yes. Lacey's still alive. She's out there. Lacey's still alive. So
Now, see, that
You
doesn't
think
look
she's
too
still
convincing.
alive?
she is,
You're sure that?
yes. Lacey's still alive. She's out there and someone's holding her, and these are critical days that we have left until the due date of February 16th. And we just need all of your help.
So,
You haven't said anything about your baby.
he is finally starting to show some emotion, but this may just be because he knows that the interview's almost over and that he hasn't really shown any yet. It could also be that he really loved Lacey. It could be he was just really worried about being arrested for her murder. I don't know what was behind this, because he doesn't really seem to get into any of the words that he's saying. Like he's saying the right words, but he's not maneuvering the right way.
It's entirely too difficult to speak about.
Do you go into the baby's room?
No, that door's closed.
How long will it remain closed?
Until there's the little guy in there. Okay, thank you. Difficult to speak about.
Damn.
Do you go into the baby's room?
No, that door's closed.
How long will it remain closed?
Until there's the little guy in there. Okay, thank you.
Well, you know one thing I think people forget about in this whole thing is the baby. People talk about Scott, people talk about Lacey, but no one talks about poor Connor, who never even got to experience life. It's a really depressing case that I don't feel has ever convincingly been proven that Scott is the man behind the murder. It's so much that points to the finger at him. It's so much that says Scott did it. But every time there's something that makes me think he killed her, there's something else that makes me think he didn't. And I can't shake it. I haven't been able to shake it for years. Ever since this case first happened, that's when it caught my attention. And all these years later, I've watched documentaries about this case over the years. I've kept up with it. I definitely got more well versed in it than I did initially as a child, but I still was never able to say confidently 100% that Scott Peterson was guilty of murdering his wife. Did he do it? Probably. He probably did it, alright? But I don't think it was proven that he did it. Somebody had to go down for it. And there was really nobody to point the direction at, or point the finger at. Like who? Who are you going to point the finger at? There was nobody. There was the I don't even know much about this, honestly. But the whole satanic, they tried to say that I don't know who they are, but somebody, it came up at some point that a satanic cult abducted Lacey or something like that. I don't really think that holds any bearing or weight. I just don't think that's a thing. It's been floated that the burglars may have encountered Lacey. And I think that is the only saving grace. Like if the robbers, if they weren't a part of the case, if it wasn't such a, like if they would have followed up on it, but they didn't. And then they try to say it happened 2 days later when there would have been police around the street. There would have been news trucks around the street. There wasn't going to be wasn't about to be any burglaries on that street that day. The burglary actually happened 2 days before. Lacey walking her dog. It is very possible that she encountered the burglars. The burglars saw her. She may have said something. She may have knew the neighbors. I'm not sure if that's been disclosed or not. But if she said something, they kept her. Then they saw, oh no, we're on the news. This girl's on the news now. We can't let her go. We're going to be, we're going down for kidnapping now. We were just trying to rob a house, but now we're going down for kidnapping. Oh no. We might as well do the full Monty and kill her. Oh, wait a minute. The news is saying that Scott was at the marina? Well, we'll just go dump the body there. That is probably what keeps me from 100% saying that Scott did it, because that was not followed up on. It was even reported that someone in prison was caught talking about, it was on a recorded conversation, that one of the prisoners were caught talking about Lacey in some manner, shape, or form. I don't remember the exact sentence that was used, but they were essentially alluding to Lacey. Never followed up on. And then people that saw Lacey walking her dog that morning supposedly followed up on. I don't know if I believe that, because Scott was obviously everyone's prime target, everyone's prime suspect from the beginning. I don't think the cops looked very hard to find any other possibilities for Lacey's disappearance other than Scott did it, Scott did it, Scott did it. And when they were presented with evidence that Scott maybe didn't do it, get away. They didn't want that because they had already done built too much towards Scott being the one. They didn't want to admit they were wrong. So did 2 robbers do it? 2, 3, I don't know how many. Robbers, burglars, bastards. Or did Scott do it? People saw him, allegedly, and they saw nothing in the boat. Could Lacey have been in the truck? Maybe. I don't know. And after all of this, I still don't know. And I don't think I'll ever know. I don't think we'll ever know the real truth behind the disappearance of Lacey Peterson. If Scott did kill her, I don't think he's never going to come clean and say that he did it. And if someone else killed Lacey, I don't think they're ever going to come forward and say that they did it. Unless some sort of forensic evidence shows up, which is highly unlikely, it's a wrap. In a California courtroom this week, there was a hearing in a sensational murder case that most think ended nearly 20 years ago. In 2004, Scott was convicted and later sentenced to death for killing his pregnant wife Lacey and dumping her body in the San Francisco Bay. But now there's a new twist in this case. In 2020, California's highest court overturned Peterson's death sentence. In December 2021, he was resentenced to life in prison without parole. Peterson's supporters want him to be retried on all charges, saying they have new evidence that could exonerate him. This was a perfect true crime case. It had mystery, murder, sex, media obsession, says Jack Leonard, senior editor of investigations at the Los Angeles Times of the Peterson case. Scott did not get a fair trial, Peterson's sister-in-law, Janie Peterson, tells CBS News correspondent Jonathan Vigliotti. Janie Peterson maintains that police did not look hard enough at others or consider a connection to Lacey's death and a burglary that happened across the street from the Petersons' home. The wrong person is in prison, she says. Authorities are not commenting, but John Bueller, one of the original detectives on the case, disagrees. There's nothing that's come out that's made me change my view that Scott got a fair trial and that Scott is the one who killed Lacey. He tells Vigliotti. 20 years later, this case still holds a lot of interest, mostly because it remains an enduring mystery. I think so. The infamous San Quentin prison is the last stop for men on death row in California, where our story begins, because that's where Scott remains behind bars. For years, the Peterson murder mystery captivated America. Sharon Rocha, Lacey Peterson's mother, at press conference. Lacey and her unborn child did not deserve to die. Peterson was ultimately convicted of murdering his pregnant wife Lacey and their unborn child Connor. He was sentenced to death. But Scott Peterson's death sentence has since been thrown out and several questions still remain. Some people believe he is innocent, that he was railroaded, even framed. Others say there is no question that he's guilty. It was just on the other side of the same bay nearly 20 years ago the bodies of Lacey Peterson and her unborn child washed up on shore. On Christmas Eve 2002, Lacey Peterson was first reported missing by her family. Scott Peterson and Lacey Rocha met in 1994 while they were both attending college. They were married 2 years later. In 2002, Lacey became pregnant. The two lived in Modesto. Police in Modesto, California, have a mystery on their hands. A woman who is 8 months pregnant and has been missing since Tuesday when she left home to walk her dog. It happened in the city of Modesto, in California's Central Valley. Scott and Lacey Peterson lived here on a quiet residential street. Retired Detective John Bueller. Christmas Day morning, about 9 o'clock, I get a call. I was a police detective at Modesto Police Department. Detective John Bueller worked the case from the beginning. Lacey was about as pure a victim as you can get. She was about 8 months pregnant when she disappeared. We went over to the Peterson house, which is when I first met Scott, and the detective remembers noticing something odd about Scott's behavior. Retired Detective John Bueller said he just didn't seem interested. Before the sun rose on Christmas Day, police interviewed Peterson. You have no idea where Lacey is. I do not. You guys didn't have any problems, marriage problems? No. Everything's good? Mm-hmm. Scott told police that Christmas Eve day, he left Lacey alone and went off on a fishing trip. He said he got home, Lacey wasn't there, only their dog Mackenzie. Mackenzie's there in the front yard area, the street area with a leash on that's kind of muddy, and he's thinking that this is kind of strange. Why would that be? His theory was that she had gone down into the park and had been walking the dog and something happened down there, abduction or something like that. Police immediately started a search. Officers returned in force this morning, combing the park and the creek bank, on foot and on horseback. Relatives, friends, and neighbors joined in distributing flyers and searching the park. But Bueller saw no sense of urgency from Scott Peterson. And neither did I. And that's another thing that does make me think Scott did it. Because despite how many times he tried to divert attention off of his suspicion in that interview, he never really seemed genuine when he said that he wanted people looking for Lacey. He was saying the right words, but they weren't, it just wasn't being delivered. No sense of urgency from Scott Peterson. You have any questions? No, I mean, I've asked you a couple times what to do, so I have the answers to that. Oftentimes, a victim who's left behind is firing tons of questions at us. We didn't get any of that from him. The response from everyone else close to Lacey was very different. Susan Caudillo, Scott Peterson's sister, we're searching, we're looking, we're going to find you. Everybody was going crazy, everybody was impatient. Lacey's mother, whoever has her, please, please, please let her go, bring her back to us. Oh man, I don't even want to read these. I thought this was just an update about the retrial. That's why I did this. On the morning of Lacey's disappearance, Scott told police he drove to a boat launch about 90 miles away from his home. He said he wanted to take his brand new boat out on the water to go fishing for sturgeon, but he never caught a single fish. As he drove home, he called Lacey, left a message on her phone. Hey beautiful, I just left a message at home, 2:15. I'm leaving Berkeley. I won't be able to go to Vella Farms to get the basket for Papa. I was hoping you would get this message and go on out there. I'll see you in a bit, sweetie. Love you. Bye. Now, another thing pointing to Scott's guilt. Why would he say 2:15? Left the message at home 2:15. Like he wanted the time to be known for some reason. Why? Maybe that was a thing that they did. Like Scott says, we don't know their marriage. Maybe that was a thing that Scott and Lacey did. They would just tell each other the time for their messages. I don't know, but that seems rather oddly specific. Left a message at home 2:15, like you're it's like you're trying to say, yeah, I don't know. Like he was leaving it for evidence or something. Like he knew he needed to do something. He needed to throw suspicion off. He needed to make a call to make it seem like he didn't know she was missing, but that's expected, but putting the timestamp in there, that's just a little too coincidental. I think we've talked enough. It seemed like a very scripted message. It just seemed phony to me. Skeptical detectives also wondered why Scott would have gone fishing in the first place. It was Christmas Eve and his wife was 8 months pregnant. Peterson told investigators he had originally planned to golf that day but decided to go fishing because of the chilly weather. That doesn't even make sense. You don't go golfing because it's cold, so you go fishing where it's... I don't go fishing much. Definitely never been fishing in the winter. So I don't know. But I'm assuming colder would be a colder activity than golfing. Plus you're driving like 2 hours damn near out of your way with a boat that nobody knows you own. But it's too cold to go golfing. So you go and take your boat out on the water like a big shot. And you're going to probably get wet. At some point, I mean, no matter what, you're going to get some water on you. So you're worried about cold? You're going to go where you could potentially be the coldest? I don't know. It's too much stuff like that that makes me say, yeah, he did it. But I think that's enough. We could talk about this case forever. I could go on and on and on in circles, and that's probably what I'm starting to do if I haven't already done it. So I think that's where we're going to cut it. Lacey Peterson has the right person. Has justice been served for her and Connor? I don't know. Many believe so, and maybe so, but I just don't know. But I do know Lacey was a beautiful soul. You can tell, like Scott even said, you can tell from the pictures. You can tell from the pictures that she was a beautiful soul. And she did not deserve to go like that. A truly terrible crime that it's still talked about 20 years later. Lacey will never be forgotten. Unfortunately, that came at the price of her life. And if Scott really did kill her, or even if he didn't, it came at the price of his too, and the price of Connor's. No matter how it happened, whether it was the robbers, whether Scott did it, whether it really was some sort of satanic cult, the end result was Lacey Peterson washed up in the bay that Scott said he was in. Guilty. Probably. I don't know. I don't think we'll ever know. A moment of silence for Lacey Peterson and Connor Peterson. This your boy Lantic City. This has been Crime City. I'll catch you next time. Goodbye.